I want to say a few words about my father and why I believe this weekend is so important. But don't worry, unlike Lionel, I won't go on.
Everyone is watching the personalities, few are watching the moves. A financial directive moves through the private offices of Kensington Palace. No press conference, no royal statement, no carefully worded memo leaked to favoured journalists. Prince William, Prince of Wales, initiates a formal review of funding streams connected to Queen Camilla's extended family. According to multiple royal correspondents, the decision is already finalised before anyone outside the innermost circle even learns it exists. This is not a family argument over holiday dinner. This is not a palace spat caught by a long-lens camera. According to reports circulating across the British press, this is a structural move, the kind that rearranges the internal power grid of the monarchy without a single raised voice or a single public word. King Charles III sits at the centre of a situation he did not design. His wife, Queen Camilla, spent more than 2 decades rebuilding a reputation that was once considered permanently destroyed. Royal biographers have long debated whether her transformation from the most criticised woman in Britain to Queen Consort represents genuine public acceptance or the result of meticulous institutional management. Right now, that question carries more weight than it has in years, because according to widespread media reports, the trigger involves a name most people had forgotten entirely: Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's first husband, a man who remained largely silent for decades while his former wife ascended to the highest position a consort can hold in British public life. But royal analysts have pointed out that old information carries new power when it resurfaces during moments of institutional transition. And the timing of this resurface is anything but accidental. Hi viewers, if you discovered that someone in your own family had been keeping a major secret for years, would you want the full truth, or would you rather not know? Drop your honest answer in the comments right now. Prince William's response, according to those who closely track the internal dynamics of the royal household, is not emotional, it is architectural. He is not punishing Camilla as a person. He is redefining which financial obligations the future monarchy will carry forward, and which ones it will set down permanently. That distinction is the razor-thin line between a personal grudge and an institutional realignment. The tabloids call it revenge. Social media calls it family drama. But from a public relations standpoint, every pound allocated, every family connection maintained or quietly severed, every relationship publicly supported or allowed to fade, sends a direct signal about what the British monarchy intends to become under its next king. And the first assumption, that this is driven by personal anger, is about to collapse completely. Because what surfaces next reveals that William's decisions did not begin with this crisis. They were already in motion long before anyone outside the palace was paying attention. The sovereign grant for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 totals £86.3 million. That figure is public record, published by the royal household and available for anyone to read. It funds palace maintenance, official travel, staff salaries, and the operational machinery that keeps the British monarchy functioning on a daily basis. What it does not publish in detail is how influence over that spending is distributed among senior royals. And according to royal commentators, that distribution is where the real power lives. Prince William does not control the sovereign grant directly. That authority belongs to the reigning monarch. But according to long-standing reporting from outlets including The Times and The Telegraph, the Prince of Wales holds significant sway over how the institution plans for the future. His office at Kensington Palace operates with a level of strategic independence that has grown steadily since Queen Elizabeth II's passing in September 2022. Royal analysts have described this expansion not as a power grab, but as a natural consequence of succession planning. The heir does not simply wait, the heir prepares. And preparation, in the context of the British monarchy, means making decisions about who is supported, how resources flow, and which public-facing roles receive institutional backing. According to constitutional scholars who study the Crown, these choices are never purely financial. They are signals. Every appointment, every allocation, every visible gesture of inclusion or exclusion communicates a message about the monarchy's direction. King Charles III has made his own priorities clear from the beginning of his reign. A slimmed-down monarchy, fewer working royals, a tighter public operation that costs the British taxpayer less, while delivering more visible accountability. Royal correspondents have reported extensively on this vision, noting that Charles has pursued this model for decades, long before he took the throne. The idea is efficiency, the idea is relevance, the idea is survival in an era where public institutions face constant scrutiny. But here is where the strategic picture becomes more complicated. Charles's vision for a modern monarchy requires buy-in from the next generation, and the next generation, led by William, may not share every priority with the current king.
The Duchess of Cornwall about your work. How does she support you? In
every way.
Yeah, in every way.
Just by being wonderfully, encouraging and supportive. Which of course is what it's like, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I do know.
According to multiple palace sources cited in British media, William's approach to institutional management focuses heavily on public trust, financial transparency, and a clear separation between personal relationships and official roles. That difference in emphasis does not mean conflict, it means negotiation. And according to royal analysts, the negotiation between father and son over the future structure of the monarchy has been ongoing for years, conducted not through arguments, but through appointments, public appearances, and the careful redirection of institutional resources. The public watches personalities. The institution thinks in decades, and the decisions being made right now will not fully reveal their consequences until the crown changes hands again. Queen Camilla walks into a state banquet at Buckingham Palace, wearing the coronation necklace that once belonged to Queen Alexandra. The diamonds catch the light, the cameras fire, every newspaper in Britain runs the photograph. And for a woman who was once described by the British press as the most despised figure in the country, the image represents something that took over 20 years to build. Her journey from public villain to queen consort is one of the most documented reputation recoveries in modern royal history. After the collapse of Prince Charles's marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales, public opinion polls consistently placed Camilla at the bottom of royal approval ratings. According to surveys published by YouGov and Ipsos throughout the early 2000s, a majority of the British public opposed her ever receiving the title of Queen. The opposition was not quiet. It was loud, persistent, and deeply personal. But institutions do not operate on public emotion alone. According to royal correspondence, the palace launched a careful and deliberate campaign to reintroduce Camilla to the British public. The strategy involved years of controlled media appearances, carefully chosen charitable causes, and a slow integration into official royal duties. By the time King Charles announced that Camilla would be known as Queen Consort upon his accession, the groundwork had been laid methodically. Public approval had shifted, not dramatically but enough. Royal biographers have noted that Camilla's position inside the institution has always carried a specific kind of vulnerability. Unlike Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose public image benefits from generational appeal and a carefully cultivated media presence, Camilla's acceptance was conditional from the start. It depended on the continued goodwill of the palace machinery, the restraint of the tabloid press, and the absence of any major controversy that could reopen old wounds. According to media analysts, that conditional acceptance meant Camilla's standing was never fully secure. It was managed. And management requires resources. According to public financial disclosures, the Queen's official activities are supported through the sovereign grant and the privy purse. But beyond official numbers, royal commentators have long suggested that the broader network of support, including allowances, staff appointments, and family-adjacent financial arrangements, plays a role in maintaining the public profile of senior royals. Reputation, in the context of the monarchy, functions as a form of currency. It determines influence, it determines access, it determines who is consulted on major decisions and who is quietly sidelined. Camilla's currency has been hard-won. Every public appearance, every handshake, every carefully worded speech contributed to a balance sheet that took decades to build. But the most important question now is not whether she was accepted. It is who holds the authority to decide what happens next, and whether the investment the institution made in her image will continue to be honoured under the next king. Andrew Parker Bowles walked through the entrance of a London event in 2023. The cameras turn. A few photographers call his name. He smiles briefly, says nothing of substance, and moves on. For most of the British public, he is a footnote, the man Camilla was married to before Charles. But for royal historians, his presence in any public setting during a period of monarchy transition carries a weight that most casual observers miss entirely. Parker Bowles and Camilla married in 1973. They divorced in 1995, the same year Princess Diana's explosive interview aired on the BBC's Panorama programme. The timeline is not incidental. According to royal historians, the overlap between the end of one marriage and the public exposure of another created a narrative chain that the palace has spent 3 decades trying to manage.
And hopefully provide maybe a different side to that others haven't seen before.
The facts of the Parker Bowles divorce are part of the public record. The interpretations of what those facts reveal about the early relationship between Charles and Camilla have filled entire books. And here is where the media dynamic shifts. According to reports published in several British outlets, there has been renewed interest in Parker Bowles' perspective. Not because he has made dramatic public accusations, but because the media landscape in which royal stories circulate has fundamentally changed. In the 1990s, the palace could manage a story through a small number of newspaper editors and television producers. In the 2020s, a single comment, a single unnamed source, a single social media post can reignite a narrative that the institution believed was buried. Royal commentators have suggested that the so-called secret referenced in tabloid coverage does not necessarily involve new information. Instead, it may involve old information reframed through a modern lens. Details about financial arrangements, personal agreements, or family understandings that were considered private at the time, but now face a different standard of public scrutiny. The distinction between a revelation and a reinterpretation matters enormously in the context of royal reputation management. The palace has survived scandals before. It survived abdication in 1936. It survived the collapse of multiple royal marriages in the 1990s. It survived the departure of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Each crisis tested the institution's ability to absorb damage, redirect public attention, and emerge with its core authority intact. But every previous crisis played out in a media environment that the palace could at least partially control. The current environment offers no such advantage. A story that would have stayed in the back pages of a Sunday newspaper 20 years ago now trends globally within hours. And the question facing the institution now is not whether it can survive another wave of old stories resurfacing. It is whether the speed of modern media has permanently changed the rules of the game the palace has played for centuries. Prince William stands at a podium during a Homewards Initiative event in Sheffield. The cameras are rolling. The audience is a mix of local officials, charity workers, and members of the public. He speaks about homelessness. He speaks about accountability. He speaks about the responsibility that comes with inherited privilege. And according to royal correspondents who cover his public engagements closely, the language he uses is deliberate. Every word is chosen to communicate a specific vision of what the monarchy should represent in the 21st century. This is not the William of 10 years ago. According to media analysts who have tracked his public evolution, the Prince of Wales has undergone a significant transformation in both tone and strategic positioning since his grandmother's death. The young prince, who once appeared uncomfortable with the mechanics of royal duty, has become a figure who, according to multiple British press reports, actively shapes the agenda of his own household. Kensington Palace now operates with a level of communication discipline that rivals, and in some areas surpasses, the operation at Buckingham Palace itself. And that operational independence matters when financial decisions are on the table. According to reports in the Sunday Times and other outlets, William has shown a consistent interest in streamlining the monarchy's financial commitments. His approach, as described by royal commentators, prioritizes 3 principles: efficiency, public trust, and a clear distinction between official duty and personal entitlement. Those principles do not leave much room for financial arrangements that exist primarily because of historical relationships rather than current institutional need. This is where the funding review connected to Camilla's extended family takes on a different meaning. From a public relations standpoint, it looks like punishment. From an institutional standpoint, according to those who study monarchy governance, it may represent something closer to policy. William is not the first heir to push for financial reform within the royal household. Prince Charles himself, decades before becoming king, advocated publicly for a leaner and more accountable monarchy. The difference is that William appears willing to apply that philosophy to relationships his father may prefer to protect. Royal analysts have pointed out that generational shifts within the monarchy are rarely smooth. The values of one era do not transfer automatically to the next. Charles grew up in an institution that valued loyalty above almost everything else. William, shaped by the very public collapse of his parents' marriage, and the global scrutiny that followed, appears to place a higher value on transparency and institutional credibility. According to commentators, these are not opposing values, but they produce very different decision-making frameworks. The Duchy of Cornwall, which William inherited upon his father's accession, generated over £23 million in income in its most recent publicly reported fiscal year. That revenue gives the Prince of Wales a degree of financial independence that few heirs in British history have enjoyed at this stage of their career. And financial independence, in the world of monarchy politics, translates directly into strategic leverage. The decision that looks emotional from the outside, a prince cutting funds connected to his stepmother's family, may actually represent the first visible move in a much larger restructuring. And the people closest to the institution, according to British press reporting, are not watching this as a family conflict. They are watching it as a preview of what the next reign will look like. Forget the satisfying headline. Forget the tabloid framing. Forget everything this story appeared to be about for the first 5 chapters. Because the real revelation is not that Prince William, Prince of Wales, moved to restructure funding connected to Queen Camilla's extended family. The real revelation is why that funding existed in the first place, and what its removal signals about the monarchy being constructed right now in real time, while most of the world is still arguing about personalities. According to publicly available royal financial disclosures, the British monarchy operates through multiple funding streams. The sovereign grant covers official duties and was set at £86.3 million for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. The Privy Purse, funded largely by the Duchy of Lancaster, supports the monarch's private and semi-official expenses. And then there are the less visible financial channels: allowances, staff arrangements, housing provisions, travel budgets that extend beyond the core working royals to family members who exist on the edges of official duty. These arrangements are not illegal. They are not hidden in the traditional sense. But according to royal finance experts, they represent a category of spending that has historically avoided the level of public scrutiny applied to the main grant. This is the exact point where the story changes shape entirely. The funding connected to Camilla's family, according to media reports and analysis from royal commentators, falls into this grey category. Not official sovereign grant expenditure, not personal gifts from King Charles III's private wealth. Something positioned in between. Institutional support extended through channels that carry the authority of the crown without appearing on the most visible public balance sheets. Royal analysts have suggested that these kinds of arrangements are common across European monarchies and serve a practical purpose. When someone marries into the institution, the broader family network sometimes requires support to manage increased public attention, security concerns, and lifestyle adjustments that come with proximity to the throne. But what was once considered a reasonable institutional accommodation is now being evaluated through a completely different lens. Prince William, according to those who track his strategic positioning within the royal household, views these arrangements not as family support, but as legacy obligations, commitments made by a previous generation that may no longer align with the priorities of the next reign. And legacy obligations, in the language of institutional governance, are always the first items placed under review when leadership transitions. This reframe transforms the entire narrative. The public sees a family fight. The institution sees a balance sheet review. The tabloids see personal betrayal. The strategists see overdue modernization. And according to constitutional scholars who study the British Crown, both readings can be accurate at the same time, because the monarchy is simultaneously a family and a governing institution, and decisions that serve one identity often cut directly into the other. King Charles III occupies the exact intersection of these competing pressures. As a husband, his instinct is to protect Camilla and the network that stood beside her through decades of public hostility. As a reigning monarch, his stated mission is to deliver a leaner, more accountable institution to the British public. According to royal biographers, Charles spent his entire adult life preparing for the throne. But no amount of preparation fully accounts for the moment when personal loyalty and institutional reform demand opposite actions from the same person at the same time. The question the audience has carried since the opening of this story, who wins the family conflict, turns out to be the wrong question entirely. The right question is whether the British monarchy can modernize its financial structure without fracturing the personal relationships that hold the institution together from the inside. And that question does not carry a clean answer, because every strategic move, no matter how carefully calculated, produces someone who absorbs the full weight of the cost. Queen Camilla steps out of a black car at the Royal Maundy service. She smiles at the crowd. She shakes hands with clergy. She accepts a small bouquet from a child who has been waiting for over an hour in the cold. The cameras capture all of it. What they do not capture is the private reality of carrying a public role that was never guaranteed and may now be quietly redefined without her consent. According to royal correspondents who have covered the monarchy for decades, the emotional toll placed on senior royals is a subject the palace rarely addresses publicly. The expectation is composure. The expectation is service. The expectation is that personal feelings do not interfere with the performance of duty. And for a figure like Camilla, whose acceptance by the public took years of careful, deliberate effort, the pressure to maintain that composure is not occasional. It is constant. Royal biographers have noted that Camilla's private circle has always been smaller and more carefully guarded than those of other senior royals. According to reports in the British press, she relies heavily on a tight group of long-standing friends and family members, the same network that now finds itself at the center of a funding review initiated by her stepson. The personal and the institutional are not separate categories for someone in her position. They overlap completely. A financial decision that targets her family's support structure is, by extension, a decision that touches her personal stability. And this is where the human cost of royal strategy becomes impossible to ignore. Prince William's decisions may be institutionally sound. They may represent exactly the kind of modernization that the monarchy needs to survive the next 50 years. But soundness and painlessness are not the same thing. According to commentators who study leadership transitions across institutions, the people who bear the greatest cost during periods of reform are often those who contributed the most to the previous era's success. They are not removed because they failed. They are repositioned because the institution's needs have changed. King Charles III finds himself caught between two people he cannot afford to lose, his wife and his son. According to palace watchers, the king has historically preferred to manage family tensions through private mediation rather than public intervention. But this situation, according to analysts, may exceed the reach of quiet diplomacy. Because the decisions William is making are not requests, they are structural changes. And structural changes, once implemented, are extremely difficult to reverse. The woman who rebuilt her reputation over 20 years now faces a reality that no amount of public composure can fully absorb. A palace decision can protect an institution while simultaneously diminishing the person who helped build it. And the silence surrounding that truth is louder than any headline. Two interpretations sit side by side, and neither is willing to give ground. On one side, supporters of Prince William's position argue that the funding review represents exactly what the British monarchy needs. According to this view, expressed by multiple royal commentators in publications including The Times, The Daily Telegraph and The Sunday Times, the monarchy must operate with financial discipline that matches public expectations. Every pound spent by the institution comes ultimately from the British taxpayer, either directly through the sovereign grant or indirectly through revenues generated by crown-held assets. Supporters argue that Prince William is not punishing Queen Camilla. He is applying the same standard of accountability to every branch of royal spending, and if that standard results in the reduction of support extended to family members who do not hold official working roles, that is modernization functioning as intended. On the other side, critics argue that the timing and targeting of this review tell a different story. According to commentary published across multiple media outlets, the decision to revisit financial arrangements connected specifically to Camilla's family, rather than conducting a broader review of all royal spending, suggests a personal motivation that the institutional language cannot fully disguise. Critics point to the long and complicated history between William and Camilla, a relationship shaped by the collapse of his parents' marriage and the decades of public pain that followed. From this perspective, the funding review is not neutral governance. It is a move made by a man who has never fully reconciled with his stepmother's presence at the center of the institution his mother was forced out of. Both readings rely on documented history. Both draw from publicly available information. And according to analysts who study public perception of the monarchy, both carry enough truth to sustain genuinely passionate disagreement among the British public. Polling data from organizations including YouGov has consistently shown a generational split in attitudes toward Camilla. Older respondents, who lived through the Diana era in real time, tend to hold more critical views. Younger respondents, many of whom have no personal memory of the 1990s, are more likely to evaluate Camilla based on her current performance as Queen. This divide mirrors the larger tension within the monarchy itself, the pull between historical memory and present-day function. Was this protection of the institution or punishment of an individual? The honest answer, according to those who study royal governance most closely, is that it may be both, and the inability to separate the two is precisely what makes this moment so significant. Royal decisions do not exist in clean categories. They carry personal weight and institutional consequence in equal measure, and anyone who claims to see only one dimension is choosing a side rather than seeing the full picture. And that unresolved tension, the space between strategy and emotion, between duty and family, between the crown's future and one woman's place within it, is exactly where this story will be debated for years to come. Three figures, three eras, three completely different visions of what the British monarchy should be. King Charles III represents continuity with reform. He ascended the throne carrying decades of preparation and a clear public commitment to modernization. But according to royal commentators, his reform instinct is tempered by a deep personal loyalty to the people who supported him during the years when the crown was not yet his, and Queen Camilla stands at the very top of that list. His reign is defined by the tension between institutional ambition and personal obligation. Queen Camilla represents transformation under pressure. Her position inside the monarchy was earned through endurance, strategic patience, and the slow accumulation of public trust in a climate that was hostile from the beginning. According to analysts, she is not a passive figure in this story. She is someone who understood the rules of the institution, played within them for over 2 decades, and secured a title that much of the country once believed she would never hold. Her presence on the board is the result of sustained effort, not royal birthright. Prince William, Prince of Wales, represents the future in its most uncompromising form. According to reporting from multiple British outlets, his approach to the monarchy prioritizes credibility, efficiency, and a willingness to make decisions that previous generations deferred. He does not carry the same debts of loyalty that his father holds. He does not share the same history of personal obligation. His strategic position is defined not by what the monarchy has been, but by what he believes it must become to survive. Every move each of them makes sends a message, to the public, to the press, to the institution itself, and to each other. And according to constitutional scholars, the interplay between these three figures during this period of transition will determine the shape of the British monarchy for the next generation. History will judge not only what decisions were made during this era, but why they were made and who was willing to pay the price. The monarchy's greatest struggles have never been only about money. They have never been only about titles, headlines, or the scandals that fill newspapers for a week and then disappear. They have always been about something harder to measure and harder to protect. Trust, survival, legacy, and the brutal, necessary choices that every institution must make when the world around it changes faster than the traditions inside it. This story began with a financial decision. It ends with a question about what kind of monarchy the British people will inherit, and whether the cost of building it was worth what was lost along the way. Leadership is not only about making decisions, it is about understanding the consequences those decisions leave behind, long after the headlines move on. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you think, Subscribe to this channel right now and tap that notification bell so you never miss a story. Every video on this channel is built to inform, inspire, and open real conversations about the moments that shape history. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and it might be the one that inspires someone else watching today. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And stay tuned, because the next story coming to this channel will take you even deeper.